Officer Candidate School. Now, we looked at big Army advertising of Officer Candidate School, and what I thought would be best is to answer some of these questions that some of you had. Mainly, hey, what are some tips that you have? But before we do that, I want to get into this video and give you some ideas of some general notes on what to expect at OCS, at least my time when I was there. Now, a couple things. Trade out. Everyone's favorite environment. For those that enlisted as an 09 Sierra, which is an officer candidate, that's what I did. You know nothing other than basic training at this point. Now, for the soldiers and NCOs, have fun jumping back into TRADOC. Say goodbye to this idea that the course is a gentleman's course. If you are hearing that, not true at all anymore. It is completely locked down and even further locked down thanks to the people who failed out on some of the parts of the course from my class. Now, all of this aside, I want to give you an idea of what to expect and some tips I wish I had prior to leaving for OCS. You know, keep in mind, I went through in 2019, so there's a lot of things that have probably changed since I've been there, but this is also my experience, and experiences vary dramatically compared to company and platoon. Now, some quick notes before we jump into the tips. I graduated in 2019 and I was 17th in my class. I branched my first pick as a military police officer, where I headed to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to complete MP Bullock, or Basic Officer Leader course, after we finished OCS, and then I was stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord out in Washington. So for classing up, there's some general notes that I'm going to give you. A PT test is conducted while you're at HHC or reception for OCS. Okay, if you do not pass this test, you're not going to class up and be onboarded with that company. So you will stay at HHC until you are able to pass that PT test and class up. So do PT. If you fail a section and you're after your second look at that exam or whatever it is that you're doing, you fail it again, you will be sent to HHC as a holdover until a company gets to the section where you failed. So let's say you're in Charlie Company and you fail something and then you fail it again for 2 times, you will be sent to HHC until Delta picks up where you failed. Now, we did bag dump at the beginning, which was pretty relaxed, to be completely honest. Our company first sergeant was making sure we had everything, and if we didn't, he just told us, hey, go out and get it before the second week. And no bag check was conducted after this one. I know that one of the companies that classed up later on, I think it was Delta, while we were there, I was in Bravo Company, they did a complete bag check and they were doing running around the entire track that's internal around OCS. So you might have that happen to you. Now, personnel who brought their car, they were able to utilize it when we were authorized to go off base. So things for like haircuts, going to Commando Joe's, or whatever the other Ranger Joe's may be in Commandos. Sorry, Commandos, Ranger Joe's, I can't remember the name of them. Now, we did have some people that snuck out after hours in their vehicle, which is incredibly dangerous. You want to play that game and you want to get kicked out of OCS, be my guest. We even had a candidate get kicked out for being in another company's barracks area after lights out were happening. So if you want to play the game with the car, by all means. Now, you will get an hour of free time, at least when I was there, from 9 to 10 p.m. That was really nice because I used this time to call my wife, or I would play some video games on my gaming laptop that I brought, which really helped me just unwind. You know, if there were any tests that were coming up, then I would use that time as well to really study. Now, lastly, for general notes, everything is based on candidate leadership, from company commander all the way down to team leader, garrison, and in the field. You will be holding a position at some point, and you will be running PT sessions at some point too. Running your sticks lanes, everyone is graded on their performance as squad leader and team leader during missions, and you're going to do that 2 times, as well as briefing your operations orders that you wrote for that mission that you were given. Now, next, the OML, the order merit list. Every graded task you complete at OCS goes towards your ranking in the class. So depending on how well you do, it will dictate what branch you get. Closer to number 1 means you go get your first pick. Closer to the last person in your class, you'll most likely be force branched or put into a branch that the Army needs officers in. Exams, honestly, they're kind of a joke to an extent. Let me explain for a second. Study the material in a way that you know how to learn. Okay, you have a college degree, surely you learned how to study for an exam at some point and your efficient way of doing it. Pass them the first time and you're good to go, aka study that material. However, if you fail an exam, you get another look. The instructors do not want to look bad that they had people failing their class. So I failed the supply exam personally, and anytime that I raised my hand, the instructor literally gave me the answer to the exam. Now, you do put on a sheet of paper what MOSs or jobs you want from, I think 1 to 10 is what you put. Maybe 1 to 15. And once you have them set, you turn that paper in, and that is your wish list of what jobs you want. You also do this at some point during the course for duty stations with a wish list of where you would like to be stationed. So I highly recommend, if you haven't started looking at places that you would want to be stationed, highly recommend doing that now, because it's very important that you have that ready and you know what places you want to do. Otherwise, they surprised us. They didn't even tell us we were doing it the day we went into class. So just like, here's a piece of paper. Where do you want to be stationed? I was very fortunate. I got my second pick of Washington. Leadership. This isn't a leadership development school. They are taking 4 years of ROTC and they're attempting to condense it into 12 weeks. weeks. You know, you're going to be thrown information left and right. You will not be able to soak it up. Just like in college, you won't use everything you were taught, but there are things that will stick with you. Do not attempt to try and learn everything and have everything stick. Yes, study for the exams and practice the things you're being taught. However, the goal of OCS is literally to pass the prerequisites to become a commissioned officer. The Army, in all of its infinite wisdom, had to come up with a program that could crash course soldiers and NCOs into officers. It is not going to teach you how to be an officer. Sure, you'll have leadership development from officers and NCOs around you, and sure, you'll learn about operation orders. However, there isn't enough time to hone that skill. You barely scratch the surface, and you will learn way more of what is expected of you and how to conduct yourself as an officer when you're at BOLIC or what your job training will be. Even more so, you understand what the job takes after you've been a platoon leader, just as you're switching out and transitioning out of being a platoon leader. Now, with that said, NCOs, listen to your soldiers. Just because they are new does not mean you brush them off and cannot learn from them. Check your ego at the door, otherwise it's going to be painful because everybody's wearing the same rank. It says OCS. Soldiers, listen to the NCOs. All right, they have the experience to assist making the course move a lot smoother. With all that said, with all that information right up front, what did I wish I knew prior to leaving for the 12 weeks of course? First one is mainly for the newer soldiers, Ruck Marching. I personally suck at Ruck Marching, and it's mainly the reason I'm out of the military now is due to my legs being jacked up with exertional compartment syndrome, and I can't ruck and I can't really run that well. So if you want more information on that, I'll leave the video in the description so you can check that out. Now, enough about me. My company conducted 4, 8, and 12-mile ruck marches while I was at OCS, and there may have been one more if I'm not mistaken. In our company, if you ended up falling out from a ruck march, they'd write your name down and you would have to do it again on the 1-mile long track. Imagine doing that 12 times around this track. 1 shot, 1 kill is ideal. Practice ruck marching. I recommend going to a military surplus store if you haven't joined the military yet and buying a rucksack or buying a rucking backpack from Go Ruck. Not telling you to, but I highly encourage you to. Start light and with tennis shoes, work your way up, buy a pair of boots and practice rucking in them and ensure they fit you properly. There are different lacing patterns that work very well. Give a quick Google, look at some different lacing patterns that work for you if you've got wider feet, things like that, that will really help you. Now, the standard weight for an Army ruck is 35 pounds, and that's without a water source. So as soon as you add that water, typically it's roughly 45 pounds. So just something to keep in mind as you prepare for OCS. What is this practicing going to do? Well, it's going to not just practice getting the idea of what the weight feels like, but this is probably the most important part with it. It's going to show you how your feet are going to break down. When you go to OCS, bring moleskin, body glide, insoles, anything to really assist against these hot spot areas. And those hot spots being like your feet start to burn in those areas or you get blisters, things like that. For those basic training soldiers, highly recommend buying new boots. Personally, I brought the boots that I wore before I had joined that I was breaking in prior to joining, and those were perfectly broken in when I got to OCS and I was able to use them because obviously at basic training, you can't use your own boots. Number 2, lighten up. I wish I hadn't taken everything so seriously. Yes, I was coming straight from basic training, so I was super, uptight about everything, but yes, you need to take it seriously because you need to be able to pass these things and understand that you're going to be in a leadership position that is potentially leading the men and women of the armed forces. Now, this isn't something to take lightly. However, I was so uptight about everything. Stopping to smell the roses is a good thing to do. You have 12 weeks to complete this entire course. Take 1 day at a time, 1 meal at a time, and chip away at every task that you're given. Don't look at this course as, wow, I have 12 weeks to go. Are you kidding me? Look at it as, what do I need to accomplish before the end of the day or before breakfast? Or lunch before dinner. Stressing about everything will not help you, and look at this course as a means to an end and find that time to relax and de-stress. There are 2 big failure points that my class had. All right, big 2. History and land navigation. First, we're going to talk about history with that 2 weeks of grueling lectures on the entire military history of the US. Let me say that again. The entire history of the US military. You then take an exam. So my biggest tip here, bring a laptop or a tablet, whatever you have, and take copious amounts of notes. I was able to type my notes on my iPad. Looking at the people that were just handwriting their notes, they were incredibly behind and they were asking me a lot. Hey, what did he say? I missed that part, because you go so fast through these different courses. Also, Control F is a godsend when you're studying. Now, land navigation. So the personnel that ended up failing or that were recycling because they didn't make it through the land navigation phase, in my opinion, acted as if they understood what they were doing, but they never asked the questions that they needed to ask to be successful. All right, be honest with yourself when it comes to these things. This isn't just for land nav, but land nav, I think, really highlights it. If you truly do not understand something at any given point, ask questions. If it still isn't making sense, ask your battle buddies to assist you. There's zero shame in needing extra assistance. Who cares if you get looks or if people are talking about you behind your back? Who cares? Do you really want to be there longer than 12 weeks? Number 3, lean on those around you. I know this one's kind of generic and a lot of people are probably like,
oh, okay, he pulled this one out, but I'm serious.
Do not think that you can do everything yourself. Utilize your teammates in platoon. Everyone wants to see people who work together succeed. You know, the lone wolf who doesn't contribute does not create a well-oiled machine. You know, you have a roommate. Be a team player, work with the platoon, and help foster an environment where people are able to communicate with each other. You know, misery loves company, and as soon as you let that run within the platoon, it becomes a shitty environment to hear everyone complaining. Pull your own weight within the platoon, and things will not make sense at times, and there's going to be a lot of friction. Welcome to the military. It's time to work on that patience, not only with the system, but your brothers and sisters in arms. My last thing that I will leave with you is this: job selection. A branch fair is held prior to putting in your wish list for the job that you want, and they will have booths all around of people that are in that job to talk to you about it. But keep in mind, you're also in a TRADOC environment and talking to people within that MOS. Not all of them are going to be blatantly honest with you. You know, check out some forums before you join, or talk with some NCOs that are at OCS who had an MOS prior to coming to OCS, so that way you can pick their brain. Hey, what was Signal like? Was it good? Did you like it? What do you think about being an officer in the Signal Corps? Things like that are going to help you make these decisions, because getting personal experience from somebody who's done the job, which, yes, use them as a resource. I think it's incredibly important to have your own research prior to coming up. Now, with all of that said, if you have any experience with something prior to joining the military, or let's say you are in the military and you had an MOS prior to joining OCS, you are able to drop what's called a branch packet. So for example, let's say I was a civilian law enforcement officer prior to joining the military, but I felt my odds of getting picked for MP were not good due to my placement being a little bit lower in the OML. I could drop what's called a branch packet to show I have experience within that field to help bolster my opportunity in getting selected. I saw many brand new soldiers and NCOs who had experience in different jobs drop branch packets and were selected, even though they were really a lot lower on the OML. It's worth a try regardless. Becoming an officer also means that you have an indefinite amount of time to serve. You have a service obligation once you commission. Yes, it's 3 years that you have to serve after commissioning from OCS. Once that time is up though, if you want to get out, you have to drop what's called a refrad, or release from active duty packet. And this has to be approved by HRC at some point. They can tell you that we don't have enough officers within the MOS that you are leaving, so therefore you need to stay in because we need more captains or we need more majors. So keep that in mind if you are still trying to make the decision of even leaving for OCS at this point, that it is an indefinite amount and you could get denied. Now, looking back on everything at OCS, it really feels like a blur. You know, I retained what I would say is the most important thing, and that's the friendships that I got out of it. Yes, it is a commissioning source. Yes, it is TRADOC, and there will be a lot of BS. However, if I was able to do it, you can too. And remember the reason that you're there. Focus on it when things seem really tough, and utilize that hour of free time to help you unwind. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any further questions, feel free to drop them down below. We stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sundays, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, typically over at twitch.tv/SergeantMadmax. I'm also posting content daily on YouTube here, so be sure to check that out. Please drop your comments. We will see you all hopefully very soon. Take it easy, take care, and stay safe out there.
I got the shivers.